$1 million came down to two positions at the Brickyard 400. Todd Gilliland finished 24th. Ryan Blaney finished 26th. And that gap, 2 spots, deep in the back half of the field, is the entire difference between a life-changing payday and nothing at all. But here's the part that should stop you. The man who created that gap wasn't Gilliland. It wasn't Blaney. It was a third driver who had absolutely nothing at stake in that tournament, who wasn't in the bracket at all, and who decided the outcome of a $1 million competition on lap 120. And then something genuinely remarkable happened. Both finalists, the man who won the million and the man who lost it, got on their radios and said almost exactly the same thing about him, independently, within seconds of each other. The winner and the loser, on opposite ends of the biggest financial swing of the season, agreed completely. So today we're breaking down who actually decided this $1 million, why both drivers reacted identically, and why Ryan Blaney's own words afterward genuinely complicate the story everyone else is telling. Stay with me. Welcome back to Freedom Line News, the channel where we don't just chase the drama, we break down what really happened. If you're new, hit subscribe. This community is growing every week. Let's get into it. Let's set the table, because the format here was beautifully simple. The in-season challenge is a bracket tournament. 32 drivers, single elimination, 5 races. And by the time the field rolled into Indianapolis for the Brickyard 400, it was down to 2 men, Ryan Blaney and Todd Gilliland, the 25th seed who had spent weeks knocking off drivers he had no business beating. Suarez, Hocevar, Bowman, Elliott, all of them gone, all beaten by the underdog. And the rule for the final was as clean as it gets. Gilliland didn't need to win the race. He didn't need a trophy. He simply needed to finish one single position ahead of Ryan Blaney. That's it. One spot and $1 million changes hands. And on Sunday morning, that looked like an enormous ask. Blaney qualified 13th. Gilliland qualified 36th, 23 spots further back. Blaney spent most of the afternoon running near the front, exactly where a Team Penske car belongs at a crown jewel event, and he was positioned for what would have been his 12th consecutive top 11 finish. Gilliland, meanwhile, spent most of the day looking at the back of Blaney's Ford. The Cinderella run looked like it was finally going to end. And then came the restart with 41 laps to go. Blaney was mired in a stacked group inside the top 15. Cars nose to tail, no room, everybody checking up on everybody else. That's the most fragile situation in racing. And entering turn 3, John Hunter Nemechek made contact with the back of Blaney's number 12. Blaney spun a full 360 and went into the outside wall. Nemechek hit the wall too, and behind them, it triggered a 9-car crash. Blaney's Ford took damage down the right side and to the splitter, and his crew needed a long stop to repair it. He rejoined the race in 31st, second to last of the cars still running. And Gilliland? He was right there, 5 cars back, watching it unfold. He said afterward that he saw a flash of yellow out of the corner of his eye, and his immediate thought was that even if Blaney just spun, he'd be shuffled back into the pack. Gilliland threaded his way through the debris cleanly, past a spinning A.J. Allmendinger, and came out the other side ahead of the man he needed to beat. In a single corner, a race he'd been losing all afternoon flipped completely. Now here's the detail that makes this story genuinely unusual, and it's the piece almost nobody has isolated. Listen to what both drivers said on their radios. Ryan Blaney's reaction was too profane to repeat on this channel, but the printable half of it was simple. That car, the 42, every week, that was his complaint. Not he made a mistake, not that was unlucky. Every week. And then Todd Gilliland, the man who had just been handed $1 million by that exact same contact, got on his own radio and said, in his own words, that with that 42 guy, it's every week with him. Think about that for a moment. These two drivers were in direct competition for the largest single payday of the season. One of them just won it. The other just lost it. Their interests could not have been more opposed, and their assessment of the driver who decided it between them was word for word almost identical. The man who benefited didn't celebrate the contact. He complained about it. That is about as close to independent corroboration as you will ever get in a sport built on self-interest. And this isn't a brand new perception either. Nemechek has been on the receiving end of this kind of criticism before. Joey Logano publicly called him out after a multi-car wreck at Phoenix a couple of seasons ago, and Nemechek himself took the blame after tangling with Ty Gibbs in an Xfinity race back in 2023. So when two drivers reach for the same phrase in the same afternoon, they're not inventing a reputation, they're describing one that already exists in that garage. But here is where we have to be careful and honest, because the easy version of this story, Nemechek cost Blaney $1 million, is not quite what the evidence supports. And the person who complicates it most is Ryan Blaney himself, because afterward, when Blaney was asked directly whether the incident made a better finish impossible, he didn't take the easy way out. He said the damage wasn't great, and it obviously didn't help, but he also said it didn't hurt him to a killer extent. His words. And then he named what he thought the real problem was. At Indianapolis, nobody could pass. He said he picked up a few spots on the restart and then simply stalled out, unable to go anywhere after that. That's not damage talking. That's the nature of cup cars at a 2.5-mile flat track where clean air is everything and overtaking is close to impossible. So the fully honest read is this. The contact absolutely cost Blaney track position at the worst possible moment, and that track position was worth $1 million. But the thing that made it unrecoverable wasn't the damage to the car, it was the racetrack. Put that identical incident at Atlanta or Talladega, and Blaney very likely drives back through the field and wins the $1 million anyway. At Indianapolis, he was stuck. And we should also be fair to John Hunter Nemechek, because he did something that deserves acknowledging. He didn't hide. After the race, he went and found Blaney himself, apologized directly, and explained what he'd seen from inside his own car. Blaney confirmed it, and he wasn't especially warmed by it. He said an apology is nice, but it still happened, and it still cost a lot of money, which is a completely fair reaction from a man who just watched $1 million evaporate. But it's worth noting, Nemechek wrecked his own race in the same moment. He hit the wall too. Whatever else it wasn't calculated. So what does this actually leave us with? For Blaney, real damage beyond the prize money. He came into Indianapolis 19 points behind Tyler Reddick for second in the standings and 87 behind Denny Hamlin. He left 36 behind Reddick and 120 behind Hamlin. He also lost a title that Roger Penske, for all his enormous success in motorsport, has never actually held. And for Gilliland, a genuinely deserved payday, because let's not let the manner of it diminish what he did. He beat Suarez, Hocevar, Bowman, and Elliott to get there. He said his heart was pounding over the final 25 laps, that it was nerve-wracking even though they were running 24th and 26th, and that he still felt like they earned it coming down the stretch. He's right. You don't survive 5 straight single-elimination rounds on luck alone. But it does raise a real structural question about the format itself, and it's the conversation this weekend should actually start. In that race, 36 drivers had nothing whatsoever at stake in the tournament. Only 2 did, which means the outcome of $1 million competition was always going to be at the mercy of drivers who had no reason to think about it at all. That's not Nemechek's fault. He was racing his own race, in a stacked pack, the way he's entitled to. But when you design a bracket where the finalists have everything on the line and everybody around them has nothing, this outcome isn't a freak accident. It's a feature of the format. And with the tournament now 2 years old and clearly here to stay, that's worth NASCAR thinking about. So now I want to hear from you. When both the winner and the loser of $1 million say the same thing about the same driver, does that settle it? Or is Blaney right that the real culprit was a racetrack where nobody could pass? And should NASCAR change a format where $1 million final can be decided by a driver with nothing to gain? Drop it in the comments. Hit like and subscribe to Freedom Line News, where we cover every NASCAR story with the detail it actually deserves. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.